chosen one. You didn't click on this video by accident. Something in your spirit felt the pull before your mind could explain it. That quiet knowing, that sense that wealth shouldn't feel this hard anymore, that's why you're here. Heaven timed this moment. Not late, not early, right on schedule. Chosen one. I need you to hear this clearly. You are not struggling because you're behind. You're feeling the tension because you're standing at the edge of release. What once required strain is about to move with ease. What once felt blocked is beginning to open. This is the moment where effort gives way to alignment and striving gives way to divine flow. Anointed one. Wealth is becoming easier for you than you think, not because you worked harder, but because heaven is removing resistance. As it is written in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 11, there is a time for everything under heaven, and your time is shifting now. You are approaching a supernatural handoff, a transfer, an elevation that doesn't come from hustle, but from obedience. Stay with me until the end of this message, because what you're about to receive is not information, it's activation. And if your spirit already feels stirred, do two things right now. Subscribe so you stay aligned with what heaven is releasing next, and comment 777 as a declaration that you are ready to receive what has been waiting for you. Chosen one. I need you to lean in with your spirit right now, not your logic, not what you were taught, but that quiet place inside you that has always known there was more. Because what you're about to hear is not a correction of your effort, it's a revelation of alignment. Wealth has felt heavy to you, not because you were doing it wrong, but because you were carrying it the hard way, and heaven is intervening to change that. Chosen one, for a long time you were trained to believe that struggle was noble and difficulty was proof of worth. You were told that if money didn't come easily, it meant you hadn't earned it yet. But hear this with clarity, heaven never designed abundance to be earned through exhaustion. It was designed to flow through understanding, obedience, and timing. And the reason this message is finding you now is because something in your season has shifted. What once required force is beginning to respond to alignment. I remember a season in my own life when I did everything right. I worked harder than the people around me. I sacrificed sleep. I followed advice that sounded responsible, and yet the numbers never matched the effort. It felt like I was pushing against an invisible wall. Have you felt that? Like no matter how much you give, something keeps resisting you. That resistance isn't punishment. It's a signal that you've outgrown the old way of doing things. Chosen one. The world taught you to chase money. Heaven teaches you to position yourself where money recognizes you. There is a difference. When you chase, you strain. When you align, you attract. And this is why wealth is becoming easier for you than you think. Not because you suddenly became smarter or luckier, but because your posture is changing. You are moving from survival into stewardship. You were never meant to spend your life trading time for crumbs and calling it security. Your spirit knows that. That's why something always felt off when you were told to work harder, save more, and wait longer. That advice works only for systems that benefit from your labor, not for destinies designed to multiply. Heaven does not reward effort alone. Heaven responds to wisdom. And wisdom begins when you stop asking, "Why is this so hard?" and start asking, "What am I being prepared to see differently?" Chosen one. There is a reason you were not taught certain things early on. Not because you weren't worthy, but because timing matters. Revelation given too early becomes noise. But revelation given at the right moment becomes power. As it is written in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, there is a time for every purpose under heaven, and your time to see clearly is now. What once looked confusing is about to make sense. What once felt withheld is about to feel obvious. Let me ground this for you. Think about how many times you said the words, "I can't afford that." Not because you were weak, but because you were trained to speak limitation. Those words felt harmless, even responsible. But words carry alignment, and every time you declared lack, you unknowingly agreed with a ceiling that was never assigned to you. I had to unlearn that myself. I had to catch the quiet phrases that were shaping my decisions. And when I replaced "I can't" with "how can I," everything began to move, not instantly, but unmistakably. Chosen one, wealth responds to questions, not complaints. The moment you shift from resignation to curiosity, doors begin to open. Not because money heard you, but because your mindset changed frequency. This is why the rich don't obsess over money the way the poor are forced to. They obsess over systems, flow, and positioning. And heaven is inviting you into that same understanding, without the arrogance, without the greed, and without the fear. You may have noticed lately that things don't stress you the way they used to. Or maybe the opposite, you felt a strange restlessness, like your current setup no longer fits. That is not instability, that is transition. When God prepares to elevate you, He first disrupts your comfort with limitation. He makes the old way feel heavy, so the new way feels light. That discomfort you've been feeling, it's not lack, it's expansion. Chosen one, money itself is neutral. It doesn't love you or hate you. It responds to clarity, and clarity is what heaven is restoring to you now. You are beginning to see the difference between assets and drains, between flow and leakage, between what looks impressive and what actually produces life. This isn't about becoming obsessed with wealth. It's about becoming free from confusion. And freedom is always a spiritual matter before it becomes a financial one. I've watched people inherit large sums and lose themselves within months. And I've watched others with almost nothing build streams that never dried up. The difference was never intelligence. It was identity. Those who knew who they were could steward what arrived. Those who didn't were consumed by it. Chosen one, heaven does not release increase until the vessel is ready. And the fact that wealth is starting to feel easier in your spirit means your vessel has been strengthened. This is why I need you to hear this next part without fear. You are not late, you are not behind, and you are not disqualified by your past mistakes. Intelligence grows through experience. Wisdom is forged through missteps. Even Scripture tells us that though the righteous may fall, they rise again. Every rejection you faced, every closed door, every moment you thought you failed, none of it was wasted. It trained your discernment. It sharpened your judgment. It prepared you to recognize real opportunity when it appears. Chosen one. Wealth is not about having money. It's about knowing how money moves. And when you understand movement, you stop panicking at pauses. You stop fearing delays. You stop interpreting silence as denial. You realize that sometimes heaven pauses you because the next step requires a different version of you, a calmer one, a clearer one, a more anchored one. So if you feel something settling in you right now, not excitement, but peace, that is confirmation. You are stepping into a season where effort no longer equals reward, but alignment does. Where money begins to follow clarity. Where doors open not because you begged, but because you were ready. Chosen one, let this truth land. Wealth is not becoming easier because the world changed. It's becoming easier because you did. And this is only the beginning of that realization. Chosen one, now that your spirit has begun to settle into this truth, I need to take you deeper, not into theory, but into recognition. Because the greatest obstacle between you and ease was never money itself. It was the invisible agreement you made with struggle. And most of the time you didn't even realize you made it. You were taught subtly, repeatedly, that money must be earned through sacrifice, through exhaustion, through proving yourself. That rest was dangerous. That ease was suspicious. That if something came too smoothly, it would surely be taken away just as fast. And so you learned to brace yourself instead of receive. You learned to tense instead of trust. That posture alone made wealth feel heavy. Chosen one. Heaven does not bless through anxiety. It blesses through alignment. When you live in constant defense mode, even blessings feel like burdens. I've been there. I remember moments when opportunities showed up, and instead of gratitude, my first instinct was fear. What's the catch? How long will this last? What if I mess this up? That mindset didn't come from wisdom. It came from survival. And survival thinking is useful only when you're meant to survive, not when you're meant to steward. There was a season when I believed that if I just worked a little harder, stayed awake a little longer, pushed a little more, things would finally break open. But all that happened was burnout. The more I pushed, the more resistance I met. It felt like swimming upstream while watching others float past effortlessly. That comparison almost broke me until I realized something critical. They weren't stronger, they were aligned. Chosen one alignment looks like ease to those who don't understand it, and struggle looks like virtue to those who were never taught flow. But heaven does not measure worth by how much you suffer. That is not righteousness. That is conditioning. This is why the shift you're experiencing now feels both relieving and unsettling. Part of you is exhaling for the first time in years. Another part of you is waiting for the other shoe to drop. That tension is the old mindset losing authority. You are unlearning what kept you safe but small. You were not created to fight money. You were created to direct it. When you understand that, you stop reacting emotionally to numbers. You stop panicking at expenses. You stop attaching your identity to outcomes. You begin to see money as a tool that responds to instruction. And instruction requires calm, not chaos. Chosen one, think about how often confusion around money made you freeze. How many times you avoided looking at accounts, avoided decisions, avoided conversations because the energy around money felt overwhelming. That avoidance was never laziness, it was overload. Too many conflicting beliefs pulling you in opposite directions. Save, but invest. Spend, but don't risk. Be generous, but protect yourself. Those mixed messages created paralysis. Heaven is simplifying things for you now, not by giving you a formula, but by restoring clarity. Clarity doesn't shout, it settles. And once clarity arrives, ease follows. I want to ground this in something real. There was a moment when I realized that the wealthiest people I knew were not the most frantic. They were the most deliberate. They didn't rush decisions. They didn't emotionally react to setbacks. They understood cycles. They expected fluctuations. And most importantly, they trusted their ability to respond. Chosen one trust is wealth's favorite environment. This is why heaven had to work on you internally before allowing things to flow externally. Because if abundance had arrived earlier, you might have clung to it out of fear. You might have made decisions from insecurity. You might have confused possession with peace. And heaven protects you from that kind of weight. As it is written in Proverbs, wisdom builds the house. Not haste, not panic, wisdom. You are being built from the inside out. And here is where the shift becomes unmistakable. You are starting to notice patterns. You are beginning to see how money actually moves, not how it's advertised, not how it's moralized, but how it behaves. You are seeing the difference between income that drains you and income that feeds you, between assets that demand attention and assets that quietly produce. This awareness is not accidental, it's initiation. Chosen one. The moment you understand that cash flow is movement, not possession, fear loosens its grip. You stop thinking in snapshots and start thinking in streams. You stop obsessing over amounts and start paying attention to direction. Is money flowing toward you or away from you? Is it supporting your life or consuming it? These questions change everything. This is why wealth is becoming easier. Because you are no longer fighting reality, you are cooperating with it. And let me say this gently but clearly, ease does not mean passivity. Alignment is not laziness. There will still be action. There will still be decisions. There will still be responsibility. But the energy behind those actions will be different. You will move from grounded certainty instead of pressure. Chosen one pressure is a sign you are carrying something that doesn't belong to you. Alignment feels steady even when it stretches you. You may have noticed recently that your language is changing. You catch yourself before saying, "I can't." You pause before dismissing opportunities. You're asking better questions. That is not coincidence. Words shape perception, and perception shapes reality. Scripture tells us that life and death are in the power of the tongue, not because words are magic, but because agreement is powerful. When you stop agreeing with lack loses permission. This is why heaven has been quiet at times. Silence was not absence, it was refinement. You were being trained to hear without panic, to wait without despair, to discern without rushing. These are the qualities required for stewardship. And stewardship is the gateway to sustained wealth. Chosen one. I need you to hear this clearly. You are not being invited into excess. You are being invited into order. Order creates ease. Chaos creates effort. And the reason wealth felt so hard before is because too much was disordered beliefs, habits, expectations, timing. Now things are coming back into alignment. You will notice opportunities that feel clean, decisions that don't steal your peace, doors that open without forcing. This is how heaven moves quietly, precisely, effectively. The kingdom does not compete, it positions. And as this settles, something else will shift. Your relationship with rejection. You will stop interpreting no as failure. You will start seeing it as information, feedback, direction. Rejection no longer wounds you because your identity is anchored. You know who you are. And when identity is secure, wealth becomes manageable. I've been rejected more times than I can count. Loans denied, ideas dismissed, doors closed. And every time it refined me. It forced me to ask better questions, to adjust numbers, to strengthen foundations. Rejection sharpened my discernment more than success ever could. Chosen one rejection is not the opposite of abundance. It is often the training ground for it. This is why you no longer fear mistakes the way you used to. You understand that intelligence grows through iteration, through learning, through experience. And that confidence alone makes wealth easier. Because money favors those who are willing to engage without being destroyed by outcomes. You are becoming that person, so let this truth anchor you now. Wealth is not becoming easier because the world softened. It's becoming easier because you are aligned, because you are calmer, because you see clearly, because you are no longer trying to prove yourself. And when striving ends, flow begins. Chosen one, allow this to settle. You are not forcing your future. You are stepping into it. Chosen one. There is another layer of truth your spirit is ready to receive now, and it may feel confronting at first, but it will also feel freeing. The reason wealth is becoming easier for you is not only because you are aligned, but because you are finally detaching your identity from struggle. And that detachment is holy. For a long time, struggle became familiar, not because you loved it, but because it validated your effort. When things were hard, you could tell yourself, at least I'm trying. When money felt tight, you could point to your exhaustion as proof of commitment. But heaven never asked you to bleed to be faithful. That belief did not come from God. It came from survival environments that confused endurance with destiny. Chosen one. There is a difference between perseverance and punishment. Perseverance strengthens you. Punishment drains you. And one of the clearest signs that your season is changing is that what used to drain you now feels unnecessary. You no longer feel impressed by busyness. You no longer admire people who glorify burnout. Something in you has matured. I remember when I finally admitted to myself that constantly being tired was not a badge of honor. It was a warning sign. I had convinced myself that rest would make me fall behind, but the opposite was true. When I slowed down enough to listen, I started making better decisions. When I stopped rushing, opportunities started arriving with less resistance. That was the moment I realized exhaustion had been clouding my discernment. Chosen one clarity requires space, and space is created by rest. This is why God commanded rest long before modern life made it fashionable. Not because he needed you to stop working, but because he knew you would forget who you were if you never stopped striving. Rest recalibrates your identity. It reminds you that provision does not come from your effort alone, but from alignment with divine order. You are stepping into that order now. And here is where many people misunderstand ease. They think ease means comfort, but ease actually means accuracy. When something is aligned, it moves with less friction. When something is accurate, it doesn't waste energy correcting itself. Wealth flows easily when your decisions are accurate, not perfect, just accurate enough to keep moving forward. Chosen one accuracy comes from self-trust. And self-trust comes from knowing that even if you misstep, you will recover. That confidence alone changes how you engage with money. You stop clinging, you stop hoarding, you stop panicking, because you trust your capacity to respond. This is why wealth felt so intimidating before. You didn't trust yourself yet, not fully. You were afraid that one mistake would undo everything. That fear made you cautious in the wrong places and reckless in others. But now something has shifted. You've been through enough to know that you can adapt, you can learn, you can recover. That knowing is priceless. Chosen one. The wealthy are not fearless, they are resilient. They know that loss is temporary when wisdom is intact. They know that money can be rebuilt faster than identity, and that understanding frees them to move without anxiety. Heaven has been building that resilience in you quietly. You may not have noticed it at first, but look back. Situations that once would have shattered you now feel manageable. Delays that once triggered panic now feel like pauses. Conversations about money no longer feel threatening. This is evidence of growth. You are no longer reacting from the wounds of the past. You are responding from awareness. As it is written in Isaiah, those who wait upon the Lord renew their strength. Not those who rush, not those who strive, those who wait. Waiting renews clarity, and clarity multiplies resources. Chosen one wealth does not reward impatience, it rewards discernment. Another truth you are stepping into now is the understanding that not all income is equal. Some income feeds you, other income drains you. Some opportunities look impressive but cost you peace. Others look small but compound quietly. In earlier seasons, you may have chosen what looked bigger because you needed validation. Now you are choosing what feels clean because you value sustainability. That shift alone makes wealth easier. I want to ground this with a real example. There was a time when I accepted opportunities that paid well, but left me depleted. The money came, but so did stress, resentment, and exhaustion. I told myself it was normal. That was just the price of success. But every time I said yes to what drained me, I said no to something that could have grown me. When I finally learned to say no without guilt, my income didn't decrease. It stabilized. Then it grew, because my energy was no longer leaking. My focus sharpened, my decisions improved, and opportunities that matched my capacity started appearing. Chosen one, wealth follows energy. Where your attention goes, resources follow. This is why heaven is teaching you to protect your peace. Not because peace is fragile, but because peace is productive. A calm mind sees patterns. A settled spirit recognizes timing. A grounded heart makes better investments, financial and relational. You are no longer impressed by noise. You are drawn to substance. And here is another layer you are beginning to understand. Debt itself is not evil. Fear around debt is. Confusion around debt is. When you don't understand something, it controls you. When you understand it, you direct it. The same applies to money as a whole. Chosen one, ignorance creates bondage. Understanding creates authority. This is why education matters, but not the kind that fills your head with fear. The kind that trains your discernment. The kind that teaches you how to evaluate flow, risk, and timing without emotional attachment. Heaven is not calling you to become obsessed with money. It is calling you to become fluent. Fluency removes intimidation. You don't fear a language you understand. You don't panic in a conversation you can navigate. And money is a language, a system of signals, a pattern of movement. Once you see that it loses its power to scare you. This is why you are no longer saying "I can't" automatically. That phrase belonged to a season where options felt limited. Now you ask, how can this work, or is this aligned? Those questions keep you in motion without forcing outcomes. Chosen one, questions expand capacity. Statements of limitation shrink it. You are also beginning to see that poverty is not just about resources. It is about mindset, not intelligence, not worth. Mindset, an attitude toward possibility, and attitudes can be changed, slowly, gently, intentionally. Heaven has been reshaping yours through experience, not lectures, through pressure, not preaching. You have lived your way into wisdom, and that wisdom is now bearing fruit. This is why you no longer envy others the way you used to. You understand that everyone is on a different timeline, different assignments, different lessons. Comparison has lost its grip on you because you are finally comfortable with your pace. Chosen one, contentment is not settling, it is alignment with your lane. And when you stop trying to outrun others, you find your own rhythm. Rhythm creates consistency. Consistency creates trust. Trust attracts resources. So let this settle deeply now. Wealth is easier for you than you think because you are no longer fighting yourself. You are no longer divided internally. Your mind, your spirit, and your actions are beginning to agree. Agreement is powerful. Scripture tells us that when two are in agreement, nothing is impossible. When your inner world agrees with your outer actions, momentum becomes natural. Chosen one, you are not chasing ease, you are embodying it. And as this embodiment continues, you will notice something subtle but profound. Money will start responding differently to you, not dramatically, not magically, but steadily, predictably, sustainably, because ease is not an event, it is a state, and you are entering that state now. Chosen one, as this understanding deepens, something else begins to rearrange itself inside you, your relationship with control. And this is where many people unknowingly block ease. They try to control outcomes instead of stewarding direction. They grip timelines instead of honoring seasons. But heaven does not move on human urgency. It moves on divine order. For a long time, control felt like protection. If you planned enough, anticipated enough, prepared for every possible outcome, maybe you could avoid disappointment. Maybe you could avoid loss. Maybe you could stay safe. But control is exhausting, and exhaustion is not the environment where abundance multiplies. Chosen one, surrender is not weakness. Surrender is accuracy. I remember a moment when I finally admitted that my need to control everything was rooted in fear, not wisdom. I thought I was being responsible, but I was actually limiting flow. I was trying to force certainty in a realm that requires trust. And the moment I loosened my grip, things didn't fall apart. They fell into place. This is why wealth is beginning to feel easier for you. You are learning when to act and when to allow, when to push and when to pause, when to plan and when to wait. Discernment is replacing anxiety, and discernment is one of the greatest forms of spiritual authority. Chosen one. The kingdom does not respond to desperation. It responds to readiness. Readiness looks calm. It looks grounded. It looks like someone who knows that if one door closes, another will open at the right time, not because they're entitled, but because they're aligned. And alignment removes panic from the equation. This is why your patience has grown, even if you didn't notice it happening. Situations that once triggered urgency now invite evaluation. You are no longer rushing to prove anything. You are listening more, observing more, waiting for clarity before moving. That shift alone protects your resources. Time, energy, money. Time is wealth. Energy is wealth. Focus is wealth. And heaven guards those forms of wealth before releasing financial increase. Chosen one. This is why certain delays were necessary. You weren't being punished. You were being protected from premature expansion. Expansion without structure collapses. Increase without discernment overwhelms. Heaven waited until you could hold more without losing yourself. As it is written in the Psalms, unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. You are no longer laboring in vain. You are building with insight. You may have noticed that your desires have changed. What once excited you now feels shallow. What once impressed you now feels noisy. You are less interested in appearance and more interested in sustainability. That is not you becoming boring. That is you becoming wise. Chosen. One, wise people value longevity over adrenaline. This is why you are drawn to things that compound quietly, relationships that grow steadily, opportunities that mature over time, income streams that don't demand constant attention. This is the mindset of stewardship, and stewardship invites trust from heaven. Heaven entrusts resources to those who won't waste them chasing validation. I want you to think about how often you used to say yes out of fear. Fear of missing out, fear of being left behind, fear of losing momentum. Those yeses cost you more than you realized. They drained your focus, they scattered your energy, they created complexity where simplicity was available. Now you are more selective. You don't need everything. You need what fits, and fit creates ease. Chosen one ease is not about having fewer responsibilities. It's about having the right ones. This is also why your boundaries are strengthening. You are learning that saying no is not rejection, it is alignment. When you say no to what drains you, you say yes to what multiplies you. And multiplication is heaven's signature. You are also beginning to understand something crucial about systems. Systems don't care about emotions. They respond to structure. When your life lacked structure, money felt chaotic. When your thinking lacked structure, decisions felt overwhelming. Now structure is emerging naturally, not rigid, but intentional. Structure does not restrict flow. It directs it. Think about water. Without a channel, it floods and destroys. With a channel it powers cities. You are becoming a channel, not a container. Containers fill and stop. Channels receive and pass through. Wealth flows through channels. Chosen one, you were never meant to hoard. You were meant to circulate. This is why generosity feels different to you now. It's no longer about proving you're good. It's about participating in flow. You give without anxiety because you trust replenishment. Not recklessly, but confidently. That confidence is rooted in understanding, not superstition. Heaven does not bless fear-based generosity. It blesses faith-based circulation. Another shift you may be noticing is how you handle setbacks. When something doesn't work out, you no longer spiral. You assess, you adjust, you move forward. That resilience is wealth literacy. It tells the universe and heaven that you can be trusted with more. I've seen people lose everything financially and rebuild because their mindset remained intact. And I've seen people gain everything and lose it because their identity wasn't ready. Identity is the true asset, and yours has been fortified through experience. Chosen one, nothing you went through was random. Every challenge trained a muscle you now rely on. Every mistake taught you discernment. Every rejection sharpened your judgment. You didn't just survive those seasons. You extracted wisdom from them. Wisdom multiplies faster than money. This is why you are no longer intimidated by conversations about finance, opportunity, or growth. You may not know everything, but you know how to learn. You know how to ask. You know how to seek counsel without surrendering authority. That balance is rare. As it is written in Proverbs, in the multitude of counselors there is safety, but the wise choose counselors, not dictators. You are no longer outsourcing your power. You are integrating insight. Chosen one integration is the bridge between knowledge and ease. You are also learning to separate emotion from evaluation. When fear is removed from decision-making, clarity increases. You don't need to feel excited to move forward. You need to feel aligned. Alignment feels calm even when it stretches you. This is why opportunities that once felt intimidating now feel navigable. You trust yourself to handle complexity. You trust yourself to pivot if needed. That self-trust is magnetic. Money responds to confidence, not arrogance, but grounded assurance. You may have noticed that people respond differently to you now. Not because you changed your personality, but because your presence is steadier. Steady people inspire trust. Trust attracts collaboration. Collaboration multiplies resources. Chosen one, isolation was never your destiny. Preparation was. And now preparation is giving way to participation. You are stepping into environments where your clarity adds value, where your calm steadies others, where your insight is welcomed. This is how wealth often expands through proximity, partnership, and shared vision. But hear this clearly, you are not chasing these environments. You are being invited. That invitation comes because your internal world is aligned with what those spaces require. So let this settle in you now. Wealth is easier for you than you think because you are no longer trying to control what must be trusted. You are no longer forcing what must be stewarded. You are no longer reacting to fear, but responding to wisdom. Chosen one, this is not luck. This is maturation. And when maturation meets opportunity, ease is the natural result. Chosen one, there is a final internal shift that completes this movement into ease, and it is subtle but decisive. It is the moment you stop asking permission to prosper, not from people, not from circumstances, not even from your past. You stop waiting for validation to arrive before you allow yourself to expand. And when that happens, wealth no longer feels distant. It feels cooperative. For a long time, part of you was still checking the room, still scanning faces, still wondering if it was acceptable for you to rise. You carried an unconscious belief that if you moved too freely, someone would be offended. If you advanced too quickly, someone would be left behind. If you received too much, it would create imbalance. That belief kept you considerate, but it also kept you constrained. Chosen. One consideration is not meant to become self-denial. I remember realizing this in a very ordinary moment. I had an opportunity in front of me that felt clean aligned and timely. But instead of moving forward, I hesitated, not because it was wrong, but because it was easy. I caught myself thinking, this shouldn't be this smooth. And in that moment, I recognized the residue of old programming. I had learned to trust friction more than flow. Heaven corrected that gently but firmly. Ease is not a threat. Ease is confirmation. This is why the last barrier to abundance is often guilt. Guilt for outgrowing old environments. Guilt for wanting more. Guilt for not struggling the way you used to. But guilt has no authority over destiny, and you are being released from it now. Chosen one, you are allowed to have a life that works. This does not make you ungrateful. It makes you responsible. Because when your life works, you have capacity to serve, to give, to build, to contribute. Struggle narrows vision. Stability expands it. Heaven is not glorified by your depletion. It is honored by your stewardship. You are beginning to understand that wealth is not about accumulation. It is about circulation with intention. Money moves toward clarity of purpose. When you know why you are building, how you are building becomes simpler. This is why your priorities have sharpened. You are less reactive to trends, less distracted by comparison, less interested in shortcuts that compromise integrity. You value sustainability over spectacle. That value system creates ease because it removes inner conflict. Chosen one, inner conflict is expensive. Alignment is efficient. There is also a deeper peace settling into you now, a peace that does not depend on outcomes. You are no longer measuring your worth by numbers alone. You are measuring progress by coherence. Does your life make sense? Does your energy match your direction? Does your work support your well-being? These questions guide you better than pressure ever could. And because you are guided, not driven, wealth responds. You may notice that ideas come more naturally now. Solutions appear without forcing. Conversations open doors. Information finds you at the right moment. This is not coincidence. This is the fruit of alignment. When your mind is not cluttered with fear, it becomes a clear channel. Chosen one, creativity thrives in calm. This is why the most impactful ideas rarely come in panic. They come in stillness, in moments of rest, in spaces where you are not trying to prove anything. Heaven speaks in those spaces because you can hear clearly there. You are also learning to trust timing. You no longer feel the need to rush manifestation. You understand that what arrives too early becomes a burden. What arrives on time becomes a blessing. And what arrives late, if aligned, still produces fruit. As it is written in Habakkuk chapter 2, the vision awaits an appointed time. You are living in that appointed time now, not because everything has appeared, but because you are ready to receive what appears. Chosen one. Readiness is not impatience dressed up as faith. Readiness is quiet confidence. You trust that what is meant for you will not miss you. And because of that trust, you stop chasing. You stop grasping. You stop negotiating with fear. You position yourself and allow life to meet you there. This is why relationships are shifting as well. Some people no longer resonate with your pace. Others are drawn to your steadiness. You are not judging either group. You are simply allowing alignment to do its work. Wealth often expands through people, but only when relationships are clean. Clean relationships create clean flow. You are also more honest with yourself now. You no longer pretend to want things you don't. You no longer pursue goals that look impressive but feel empty. That honesty saves you years of misdirected effort, and saved effort becomes available energy. Energy is currency. Chosen one. This is why your intuition feels sharper. You sense when to move and when to wait. You recognize when something is forced versus when it is organic. You don't need every answer to begin. You just need the next clear step. And that step always appears when you are grounded. There is a quiet authority in that. Authority that does not announce itself, but is felt. People trust you more. Opportunities open more easily. Negotiations feel balanced. This is not manipulation. It is coherence. When your inner world is aligned, your outer world reflects it. You may still face challenges. Ease does not mean the absence of obstacles. It means obstacles no longer define you. They become navigable, temporary, informational. You extract wisdom and move forward. Chosen one, you are no longer afraid of learning curves. You understand that mastery is built, not granted, and that understanding removes shame from growth. You are willing to be a beginner where necessary because your identity is secure. Security attracts resources. This is also why your generosity feels different now. It is no longer impulsive or performative. It is intentional. You give where there is alignment. You invest where there is vision. You support what resonates with your values. That discernment protects both your heart and your resources. Heaven trusts stewards who know when to say yes and when to say no. As this settles, you may notice something surprising. Wealth no longer feels like a destination. It feels like a byproduct, a natural outcome of a life that is ordered, intentional, and aligned. That shift alone removes pressure. Pressure dissolves ease. Presence creates it. Chosen one, let this truth anchor you now. You are not waiting for wealth to arrive so you can relax. You are relaxed, and wealth is responding. You are not striving to prove yourself worthy. You are worthy, and resources are aligning accordingly. This is not fantasy. This is spiritual law in action. You are living proof that when identity is anchored, clarity is restored, and fear is released, wealth no longer resists. It cooperates, it organizes, it multiplies. So take a breath here. Let your shoulders drop. Let your spirit settle. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not disqualified. Chosen one. Wealth is easier for you than you think, not because life became simple, but because you became aligned, and alignment is the greatest advantage there is. Chosen one, as this moment comes to a close, let your spirit rest in what has been revealed. You were not brought here to be entertained, but to be reminded. You do not need to fear mistakes, delays, or past missteps. Even the paths that looked like detours were training grounds. What mattered was not perfection, but your willingness to keep listening, learning, and aligning. Anointed one, hear this with reverence. A supernatural transfer is already in motion, not someday, not later, now. You are standing in your exact kairos moment, the appointed time where understanding turns into movement and movement turns into manifestation. What you have received today is not just insight, it is permission. Permission to move forward without shame. Permission to trust the process. Permission to allow ease where there was once resistance. May clarity guard your mind, peace steady your heart, and wisdom guide every step you take from here. Stay faithful to what you now know. Stay aligned with the flow that has begun. Look ahead not with anxiety, but with quiet gratitude for what is forming even now. If this word settled deep in your spirit, let it be sealed. You may subscribe to remain connected to what heaven continues to release, and if you feel led, leave a simple sign of agreement in the comments. Go forward, chosen one. What is meant for you is already finding its way.